Well, today I am with my friend Hirash, right?
Harsh.
I knew that. We practiced together. I
Yeah, we
should
did.
know. I need to pay attention in rehearsal a bit better.
Yeah,
Harsh,
yeah, Harsh.
right now coming from Kolkata or Calcutta, India.
I'm bobbling
I
my
never.
head for the
Yeah.
comedic purposes.
We know that we have an Indian in the house when he's bobbling his head. So, Harsh is the chief editor of The Pangean, a magazine dedicated to representing as many diverse ideas and perspectives and points of view as possible. So, with that being said, thank you, Harsh,
I'm more than
for
glad to have joined.
coming on. So, one of the topics that we were both interested in talking about is the concept of Pax Americana and where it's headed, where it's going. In your own words, could you describe Pax Americana?
Oh, the belief that even if Iraq was wrong, there's only one country that can do things like Iraq. So the way I'd characterize it is this, this belief that America is a big brother, that it is some sort of benevolent protector of the world. I mean, that's one aspect. The other aspect that, that America has a responsibility to the world of keeping international peace, of resolving international conflict, of taking a leadership role at the United Nations, of helping the world's economies, of ending child poverty in poor places in Africa and in India. Sort of, yeah. uh, I mean, yeah. Let me be even more harsh in my assessment of it. Uh, it's the belief that you're some kind of messiahs.
Mm-hmm.
It's the belief that you're some kind of messiah, that you're here to do good, and that in some way your economic prosperity and your military might, especially in the post-World War II order, whatever it's called, the international liberal world order, whatever new shibboleth we invent to try and justify this. That America has this power which it must use for some sense of good in the world, which means it can interfere in other people's problems.
And as a I imagine a non-American person with, I'm sure many American friends, but a person living in India, studied in England, a very international cosmopolitan fellow, such as yourself. What exactly is your perspective? Is this a good ideology to have, or is it destructive?
Oh no, it's destructive in the sense that it's not particularly about America per se, not at all. No country, because by virtue of its economic might or its military might, can solve other people's problems. I mean, we're dealing with 6+ billion people here. No one country with 300 million people or 1.2 billion people or 1.3 billion people, or even half the world population, 3 billion people, act as the pater familias of the world. Because, other people's problems are other people's problems, Countries. I mean, of course, I'm not saying don't be humane. I'm not saying that with more economic might and more military might, you don't have a moral responsibility to the world. But
I think that's mostly what it is the moral responsibility, not so much we can fix every single problem, but the Pax Americana ideology is that we ought to try to do our best to help where we can. Do you agree with that?
And that's what I'm saying, that the cultivation of restraint has been so difficult with America. The cultivation of restraint has been so difficult with America. And Iraq is proof. Afghanistan is proof. I mean, that is where, so many people around the world do not like Donald Trump much. But I do like Donald Trump, at least for that reason, which is that, yeah, fuck off. You're not needed in Iraq. You created an ISIS out of being in Iraq. You killed, again, that this was the meme that I saw with Mr. Obama as well, which was that, well, yeah, I sent drones and killed little children in Pakistan, but at least I completed my tweets with proper sentences. And to me, I'm just like...
That's how you see the two presidents, is that Obama was more presidential in the sense that he could properly complete his tweets, but he did kind of send more bombs were dropped under Obama than I believe any other president.
Well, yeah,
that's just gnarly to comprehend. But
and it becomes especially problematic when you consider that, okay, this gentleman's supposed to be black, and this gentleman's supposed to, in some sense, represent an emancipation of ethnic minorities or the weaker sections of the world.
Right.
You know, like, it's a complete violation of a country's self-respect to say that, well, we can come in and solve your problem better than you because our way of life is that exceptional. Like, keep it to yourself. Even Rome didn't go around doing that. At least it didn't have...
Rome kind of... Well, you see, the thing is, when Rome conquered something, it took it for itself.
Yeah, it conquered. Go ahead and conquer. No one is saying don't conquer.
No, but
at least don't lie about it.
Don't lie about it. When you conquer, make sure to actually do it. Don't just like go there and leave. At least keep us and enslave us and stuff. Don't just like conquer us and leave. It's like, where's the fun in that? Right? Okay.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, see, there was only one Cyrus the Great for one reason. Only Cyrus the Great could pull that off. Freeing the Jews from Babylon and building the second temple and becoming recognized as a Messiah in the Hebrew Bible. Only Cyrus could do that. You people aren't Cyrus. You're Christian.
Right. Sorry. Oh, that's too funny. Now, I'll give you a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Sure. No.
Forces like nations such as Russia and China, to a certain extent, Iran and Saudi Arabia, they really, and Turkey, that's another great example. They really do not care about some grand, happy, kumbaya world order. They just want power. They want to preserve their civilizations. They want more resources. They want more wealth. They want to keep themselves going. And countries that cannot defend themselves. World War II is a great example. Nazi was steamrolling Europe. The Brits would be speaking German if they didn't have the help from the United States. And then the South Koreans would be part of North Korea were it not for the United States. All these different examples of Americans helping out other people and not really getting terribly much, other than an economic partner or something like that. They're not really getting. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think to me that is the exception which justifies sort of the norm I'm talking about. Because the point I'd make is, well, of course, make a Marshall Plan. All right, make a Marshall Plan. Yeah, give us aid, give countries aid, but establish a very clear quid pro quo. Do not, have this veneer of complete do-goodery, when under it, all you're trying to do is exactly what Russia or China is trying to do. So, my point being, well, of course, there's a reason why the United Nations exists. Empower that as an organization. I'm not saying don't participate in world affairs. I'm not saying, become some kind of hermit nation, God forbid. But, by virtue of your economic might, by virtue of your military might, you're inevitably more involved in world affairs than, say, the Cayman Islands is, or the Central African Republic is. That's the natural way in which things work. But what I'm saying is that should not, no one country, and it's very harmful to America in and of itself, because I think America would have been able to invest in a better healthcare system instead of just Medicare and Medicaid. And a more common sense healthcare program that would provide affordable healthcare, maybe even free healthcare to the neediest in your population and stuff like that, and really solve a lot of its own problems. If it hadn't gone out and spent trillions of dollars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and more importantly, you're sending your boys to die there for what? Again,
well, I wasn't the guy that pulled the lever. Don't look at me.
No. No, of course, I'm not holding any American to account. I'm speaking of America's government. But yeah, that's my point. That war is serious business. It's costly business. I mean, be very, very careful. Be very, very restrained.
Well, I mean, I'll do my best to speak for as many Americans as
especially
I can.
When you caused 9/11.
Yeah. We all know that one. So, I speak for a lot of Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, in the sense that we really don't like foreign wars. We're kind of like Vietnam was kind of the last foreign war that America predominantly tolerated for at least a portion of it. And then after that, I mean, the Gulf War was an exception, but America really doesn't like, the American public at least, does not like getting involved in foreign affairs or wars. That's why I very much applaud Trump for pushing the NATO countries to stop sitting there expecting America to defend them. I mean, I'll throw the ball back into other countries' court and say, I would be more than happy for America to reduce its military power if other countries would step it up. You know, Germany, France, England, all these other countries really need to step up their game if they want America to, you know, take a step back. So, how exactly? You don't believe that it's completely America's fault for America having this mentality of trying to protect everyone, since no one else is stepping up?
Again, trying to blame any one country singly for anything, any one person for any given social problem, is not a very intelligent thing to do in the first place. So of course I don't blame America only. I mean, I also blame the way in which Europe, post the Second World War, had just grown to expect America to do all of these things. Because, I mean, this is something one of my friends used to say, which was that Europeans have just become so lazy. They've just taken American protection for granted. It really has happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the world also needs to get over its America worship. It's not much to worship. You guys have the most amount of obesity in the world. Yeah.
Well,
and a per capita incarceration rate, which is
I would argue
absurd.
Obesity is a point of pride, because, you know, some countries, when they have their poverty is you know, skin and bones, our poverty is fat people. So I think it's a point of pride, actually, you know. But yes, please continue.
We have many fat kids in America. I'm quoting the interview.
Yes. It's a point of pride too that our poor people are fat. That's what makes America amazing, is that we have we have fat poor people. Seriously, if you're starving in America, it's really easy to buy high carb, high fat food. Super easy to do that. Versus in Cambodia or rural Nigeria, you're going to starve to death.
India, I know you want to say it.
Well, there's so many people there. You know, there's so much stuff there. I can't imagine. Well, I mean, I'm sure that poverty, starvation exists in India, but in the places, at least where I mentioned, you know, starvation, that's what happens when you're poor. You die of lack of food. Here in America, when you're poor, you can exist, you can survive. You know, it's not a great existence, but you can at least exist. But anyway, I'm getting off the point.
No, that's fine.
Back in on the so it sounds like there's sort of a agreement between both America and the international community, if we're going to represent me as America and you as the international community, that we both agree that America's military power should be withdrawing, but only if other places, not just NATO, but also India, African countries, and all these other places were able to expand their military power. Do you agree with that?
I wrote an article very particularly on the defense relationship between India and the United States last year for this magazine called The Quint. But what we explored there was, despite a lot of the differences India has with America, especially on trade, because we have suddenly taken a protectionist turn, which doesn't make sense to me. We as in India, but that aside, I mean, we've made lots of agreements on conducting joint naval exercises, and we are sort of being looked on, if you will, as a buffer against China. Now that Trump actively wants to withdraw from Pakistan, given how much of a fuck up Pakistan is. I mean, yeah, there is no denying that giving Pakistan money is giving terrorists money. Terrorists who actively plot against America, India, and now with China really being in bed with Pakistan, it's just there's very
Yes, you're dead on. You're dead on. You're dead on right there. Another big question I have for you is: do you believe at this point in time, not like during the Iraq War, not during World War II, at this point in history, do you believe that America is giving a net positive good to the world, or it's a negative influence on the world?
Right now, I think that's too broad and too abstract a question. I mean, attempting an answer will not be meaningful.
How about in terms of
if you make it more specific?
In terms of military and defense, do you think that at this point in time, America is doing a positive good or a negative overall in terms of their military involvement in world affairs?
It's hard. This is a difficult question, is what I'd say.
All right. Let me make it regional. Let's split up to different regions. How about within Asia? Do you think that they're a net positive in?
I mean, they aren't doing much in Asia, although I do think the Seventh Fleet being parked in Japan is a big waste.
Could you argue that in itself is a positive or negative? That the fact they're not doing much in India or Asia in general?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, apart from, the whole Seventh Fleet being parked in Japan, which I think is a big waste, simply because that's their region. Like, that's why I want North Korea solved. It means America can take its Seventh Fleet back to where it should be, near American waters, or to Hawaii or whatever. Like,
yeah. Forget about like.
I had a joke about Japan and
forget about
coming up with you guys taking it back to Hawaii, but.
Like, that's really why you want North Korea to be solved, so America can leave. It's like, also so they could be free, the North Koreans.
It's not your worry. It's the North Koreans' worry. I don't care. Yeah, okay, some disaster happens over there. India will send grains. You send food grains. Help them. Wow, why not? Some problem occurs. Bring it up in the Human Rights Council, put some diplomatic pressure on them to be, and tell them to be like, can you respect like press rights, man? But apart from that, I mean, of course, and I mean, I'm sort of maybe I sound very Nehruvian right now, but the first Prime Minister of India, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, he sort of outlined India's policy as non-interference and non-alignment. But I mean, as one of the 2 of the 5 core tenets of Indian foreign policy. Non-alignment and non-interference. But that didn't mean that there wouldn't be an active engagement. It would just be an active engagement based on one's own terms and one's own priorities. And it would also mean, that India would stand for a lot of things in the world and would stand up for weaker nations and stand against poverty and a violation of human rights. But in a restrained manner, which did not interfere with the internal affairs of another country. So, of course, really, as America, with the clout you have, use that clout for good. But again, sort of don't overstep the limits for your own sake. That's what I'm saying.
And I think that's always going to be a internal debate within America, because what is overstepping the bounds? So, I mean, because I didn't really get any rich oil money from invading Iraq or whatever. I also didn't really benefit directly from the liberation of Europe during World War II. But at the same time, it kind of saved the world.
Well, yeah, exactly. See, because I think World War II is the exception which justifies the norm. It's the second fucking World War. I mean, like, you have to be very, very involved there. But but some crazy oil dictator, killing his own people, that is a problem you can bring up with the United Nations. And again, the Security Council of the United Nations has powers to intervene.
I would like to point out, though, that when you say United Nations, you're saying 70% America, because we provide something like over 60% of their budget.
Well, yeah, I know. And I do think, and I agree with Trump completely, that needs to be reduced so that other countries chip their fair share in as well. Funny enough, the United Nations owes us money. which is like,
America will
mate,
probably
we
end up
don't have
paying
money, man.
Which America will probably end up paying anyway.
Yeah, because what is the United Nations finances? Yeah.
Well, I mean, as horrendously disastrous as the Vietnam War was, at the very same time, you have the Korean War, where you could argue American involvement was successful and net beneficial to the Koreans, the South Koreans. I mean, there would be no South Korea now, no Samsung, no many, all these industries would not be around were it not for American involvement. Do you think that's a justification of American involvement?
That I think, and I will, and I will draw the analogy of the Afghanistan war in the 79 to 89, in order to say that was Cold War policy happening. That was just Cold War policy playing out. I mean, yeah, you consider, ending communism in the world to be something that is extremely moral. The US considered spreading communism in the world to be something moral. So that I don't think I'll have. I don't think that's. I think it's very different from what we're trying to discuss right now, because that was just Cold War policy playing itself out.
Right.
The United States and US are vying for influence.
So, Harsh, thank you so much for this great enlightening discussion on Pax Americana and the relationship between the United States and the international community. This was, for me, a very enlightening conversation. Folks, make sure to head on over to the Pangean to see Harsh's work. Really phenomenal articles are there from a wide variety of very intelligent people. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate this discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex.